The galaxy was buzzing with tension as the news spread like wildfire across the stars. The Krillians were coming, and they were bringing their armada with them. The Krillians had long been known for their ferocity and their hunger for expansion. Their ships were colossal, their weapons devastating, and their reputation for annihilating entire worlds had spread to every corner of the galaxy. Every race, from the technologically advanced Enzoth to the massive Taurosians, knew the terror that the Krillian fleet could bring. The moment the first Krillian warship appeared at the edge of human space, the entire galactic community fell into a frenzy of fear and anticipation. On Earth, though, there was a different kind of reaction. The human leaders gathered in hushed rooms filled with anxious advisors, scientists, and military officials. The moment they received the news, they knew what was coming, but they also knew what needed to be done. Humans had always faced insurmountable odds in the past and had emerged victorious. Somehow they had always found a way to survive, and now once again they would have to rely on that unshakable spirit in the face of a threat that could destroy them all. What no one expected was how the humans would respond to this new invasion. While the other races scrambled to prepare their fleets and muster every warship they could find, the humans did something completely unexpected. They sent only one ship, the Resolute, a sleek and advanced warship capable of taking on some of the best ships in the galaxy, but nothing compared to the vast Krillian armada. The galactic factions watched in disbelief as the Resolute set out alone into the vastness of space, leaving Earth with no backup, no reinforcements, just a single ship against an entire invasion force. The Enzoth, who had long been the galaxy's best tacticians, stared at their screens in disbelief. A single ship. They couldn't fathom why the humans would do such a thing. Surely the humans were either overconfident or out of their minds. Their fleet was massive. They had all the firepower needed to crush an enemy like the Krillians, and yet here they were watching a single human vessel fly toward the most dangerous enemy they had ever faced. The Taurosians, with their immense strength and military might, were equally baffled. Their ships were among the most powerful in the galaxy, and they had no hesitation in offering every single one of them to fight alongside the humans. But the humans rejected them politely. They were willing to stand alone. The entire galaxy seemed to be asking the same question: why would they send only one ship? But Earth's leadership stood firm in their decision. Captain Elias Wren of the Resolute stood at the helm of the ship as it prepared to jump into the unknown. He knew the odds were against them, but he had always believed in the power of human determination. It wasn't the number of ships that mattered, it was the human will to fight and survive against all odds that made them stronger than anything else. The Resolute shot off into the deep expanse of space, its engines blazing with a quiet but unwavering confidence as it headed straight for the heart of the Krillian fleet. The galaxy held its breath. The fate of humanity rested in the hands of one ship, one captain, and a crew who trusted him to lead them into the unknown. As the Resolute ventured further into the dark expanse, the galaxy remained in a state of stunned disbelief. The alien species who had watched humanity from the edges of space, unsure of what to make of this unpredictable race, now turned their attention to Earth's lone vessel. On the distant planets, war rooms filled with strategists and generals buzzed with frantic discussions. The Krillians were coming for Earth, and the humans had only sent one ship. What did it mean? Was Earth simply underestimating the Krillians, or did they know something no one else did? The Enzoth, a race known for their precision and cunning in battle, were the first to speak openly about their confusion. With their advanced weaponry and expertise in the art of war, they had never encountered such a move. "Are the humans mad?" asked one Enzoth general, his thin mandibles clicking in agitation. "A single ship cannot stand against the might of the Krillian fleet. It's impossible." His colleagues murmured in agreement, their eyes flicking nervously toward their own fleets. For all their strength, they couldn't fathom why Earth would gamble everything on a single ship. The Taurosians, who revered strength above all else, were equally perplexed. Known for their massive warships and towering commanders, they were a people built for overwhelming force. The humans' decision to send only one ship defied all logic to them. Why not send everything at once? Throw everything they had into the fight? Their heavy-set ships could decimate entire fleets in a single assault. But no, the humans had opted for a different path, one that felt almost like a dare. If they are willing to gamble everything on that one ship, the Taurosian commander grumbled, his voice low and thunderous, they must know something we do not. The Zuhar, a race of highly intelligent beings known for their philosophical pursuits, took a more speculative approach. They had studied humanity for centuries, intrigued by their unpredictable nature. They had witnessed humanity overcome seemingly impossible odds before, wars against enemies much stronger, challenges they should have never survived. Yet, somehow, humanity always found a way. Perhaps it is not foolishness, mused one Zaire philosopher, but an opportunity to prove something. A message to the galaxy. Perhaps they believe that they can teach us all something we have forgotten, that it is not the size of the fleet, but the strength of will that matters most. Across the galaxy, the whispers spread. Some speculated that humanity had a hidden weapon, something powerful enough to take down the Krillian fleet with just a single ship. Others believed they had struck a secret deal with a powerful ally. Still others argued that the humans had no chance at all, and were simply resigned to their fate. Yet in every corner of the galaxy there was a growing curiosity, an unspoken question echoing through the stars. Why only one ship? As the Resolute continued its journey, the human crew faced the uncertainty of what lay ahead. They knew they were alone in the dark void of space, cut off from any support. Their only hope rested in the leadership of Captain Elias Wren and the ingenuity of the men and women aboard the ship. In the quiet of the command center, Wren stood at the helm, staring at the distant glimmer of the Krillian fleet. There was no turning back now. The fate of humanity rested on the shoulders of one ship, one captain, and one crew. The rest of the galaxy watched with bated breath, unable to understand what the humans were thinking. And yet, deep in the hearts of those aboard the Resolute, there was no doubt. It wasn't the size of the fleet that mattered. It was the determination to face the impossible, to rise to the occasion when the odds were stacked against them. Humanity had always found a way. And this time, they would show the galaxy why they were worth watching. The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before the Resolute as it closed the distance between itself and the Krillian fleet. The stars were distant pinpricks in the inky blackness, and the silence of space was only interrupted by the hum of the ship's engines and the quiet murmur of the crew preparing for the most important mission in human history. Aboard the Resolute, Captain Elias Wren stood at the command console, his fingers brushing the controls as his eyes tracked the approaching Krillian fleet on the view screen. They were coming. 50 warships, massive and intimidating, each a marvel of alien engineering. Yet despite the overwhelming odds, there was no hesitation in Wren's expression. His resolve was ironclad. "We're entering the outer perimeter of their fleet, Captain," said Lieutenant Kira, the ship's tactical officer, her voice steady, but filled with a hint of nervous energy. "They've already begun to turn their ships toward us." Wren nodded. He had anticipated this. The Krillians were not known for subtlety, and their ships were far too large to be easily maneuvered. Their first move would be to surround them, to close in and use their overwhelming firepower to destroy the Resolute. He glanced around the command center, meeting the eyes of his crew. They were young, many of them new to battle, but their determination matched his own. He knew they could handle this. "Prepare evasive maneuvers," Wren ordered. "We're going to make them think twice about their approach." The crew worked quickly, initiating the ship's advanced evasive algorithms, designed specifically for situations like this. The Resolute was smaller and more agile than the massive Krillian ships, which relied on sheer firepower and brute force. But it was this very advantage, the human ability to think and adapt, that would give them the edge. Wren's mind raced as he considered the situation. The Krillians were used to overwhelming their enemies with sheer numbers and strength. But humanity had something they didn't: ingenuity. "Captain, incoming fire," Kira called, and Wren's heart skipped a beat. Without hesitation, he snapped his fingers, a signal to the crew. "Activate the deflector shields," he commanded. The Resolute shuddered as the first wave of Krillian energy blasts rained down upon them. The shields flared bright blue, absorbing the barrage, but the impact rattled the ship's systems. Ren felt the vibrations beneath his feet, but held steady. He could feel the intensity of the battle in his gut, but there was no fear. Not yet. "Steady," he muttered to himself. "Stay focused." "Shields holding, but they're weakening," Kira reported. "Another wave coming in." Ren didn't hesitate. The Krillians were predictable in their tactics. They relied on brute force, thinking it would crush any enemy. But humanity wasn't predictable. The Resolute veered sharply to the right, diving toward the gap between two Krillian warships, narrowly avoiding another volley of energy blasts. The ship's sensors whined in protest, but Ren grinned as the ship accelerated toward the heart of the Krillian fleet. "They're not going to know what hit them," Ren muttered. Kira looked up, a sudden realization dawning. "Captain, you're not going for the broadside, are you?" Ren's grin widened. "No, we're not going to play their game. We're going to force them to play ours." With a series of precise maneuvers, the Resolute darted between the columns of the massive Krillian ships. The alien fleet's firepower rained down on them, but Ren had already calculated the odds. The Resolute zigged and zagged, darting through the gaps in their lines with incredible agility. It was a game of patience, a game the Krillians were ill-equipped to play. Then, with a sudden shift, the Resolute broke free, emerging from the dense line of Krillian ships and turning its weapons on the nearest target. Ren gave the order, and the human ship fired back with pinpoint precision, striking the nearest Krillian warship with such force that it was thrown off course. Sparks flew from the enemy vessel as its shields flared, and then collapsed. The Resolute darted away, leaving the crippled ship in its wake. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The humans weren't just fighting. They were fighting on their own terms. Against all expectations, the Resolute had struck back, not with brute force, but with speed, skill, and strategy. For the first time since the Krillian fleet's arrival, the balance of power had shifted, even if just slightly. "Target neutralized, Captain," Kira reported, her voice filled with disbelief. Ren didn't celebrate. Not yet. But there was a flicker of hope in his chest. They were just getting started. The tension in the Resolute's command center was palpable as the crew watched the crippled Krillian warship drift off into the dark void, its lights flickering weakly. The entire bridge fell silent for a moment, the hum of the engines the only sound in the stillness. Captain Elias Ren's fingers hovered over the controls as he monitored the rapidly shifting battle around them. The Krillian fleet was far from defeated, and they were already regrouping, adjusting their strategy in response to the unexpected tactics the humans had employed. Incoming, Lieutenant Kira's voice broke through the silence, her tone sharp and urgent. "They're deploying their elite warships." Ren's eyes narrowed as he studied the view screen. From the swirling formation of Krillian ships, a new wave of vessels emerged, sleek, angular, and menacing, their designs far more advanced than the others. These were the Krillians' most feared vessels, equipped with heavy armor, devastating weapons, and powerful shields. They had been reserved for only the most critical situations, and now they were being brought to bear against the Resolute. "Well, it was nice while it lasted," Ren muttered under his breath. But there was no fear in his voice, only determination. "All hands, brace for impact. They've brought their best to the table." The Krillian ships surged forward, their weapons charging with an ominous glow. The Resolute was faster and more agile, but now it was up against an entirely different kind of opponent. Ren gave the order to engage evasive maneuvers, and the ship veered sharply to the left, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy blasts that erupted from the Krillian ships. The explosions shook the Resolute, and a few lights flickered on the bridge, but the shields held firm. "Shields are holding, but they're beginning to strain," Kira called, her hands flying over the controls. "They've adapted to our movements. These ships can track our speed." Ren didn't respond immediately, his mind already working at full capacity. He had known this moment would come. The Krillians were too powerful to be bested by a single surprise attack. He needed to think quickly, to take advantage of every advantage humanity had. The Resolute's strength wasn't in its firepower. It was in its ability to outmaneuver, outsmart, and outblast. "Bring us into range of their command ship," Ren ordered. "We'll hit them where it hurts." The crew worked swiftly, adjusting the ship's course to avoid the concentrated fire from the Krillian warships, while positioning themselves to strike at the heart of the fleet. The Resolute lurched as it narrowly dodged another wave of energy fire, but Ren kept his focus. His eyes were locked on the lead Krillian command ship, a massive vessel adorned with glowing runes that pulsed ominously. "Prepare the disruptor cannons," Ren said, his voice calm and measured. "We're going to take out their communications." The Resolute's weapon systems hummed to life as the crew activated the experimental disruptor cannons. These weapons had been designed for one purpose: to break the coordination of enemy fleets by targeting their communication systems. Without communication, the Krillians would be unable to synchronize their attacks, creating chaos among their ranks. As the Resolute closed in on the command ship, the Krillian fleet seemed to realize what was happening. The lead ship retaliated, launching a volley of energy missiles that streaked toward the Resolute. The human ship barely managed to dodge the barrage, but the threat was real. One hit could spell disaster. "Shields at 40%, Kira reported, her voice strained. "We can't take another direct hit." Ren's heart raced as he locked onto the command ship, watching as the disruptor cannons powered up. He needed just one clean shot. The Resolute swerved again, dodging a cluster of missiles that exploded behind them, the shockwaves rattling the ship's frame. With a roar, the disruptor cannons fired, a brilliant burst of energy tearing through the void. The beam struck the Krillian command ship square in its communications hub, and for a moment, everything went still. The Krillian warships faltered, their movements suddenly erratic as their communication systems went dark. The Resolute had created the chaos Ren had hoped for. Confusion rippled through the Krillian ranks as their coordination collapsed. But the battle wasn't over yet. "Now's our chance," Ren said, his voice cold with determination. "Keep the pressure on." The Resolute dove back into the fray, using the disarray to strike at weaker targets. The Krillians, though powerful, were no longer the cohesive unit they had been. The humans weren't done yet. Not by a long shot. The battle had shifted. The Krillian fleet, once an unyielding force of nature, was now struggling to maintain cohesion. Chaos rippled through their lines as their communications were severed, and their movements became less synchronized. Captain Elias Ren watched it unfold with a grim determination, knowing that the Resolute's momentary advantage could quickly evaporate if they didn't capitalize on it. The fate of humanity hung on the edge of a razor. "All units, stay on target," Ren barked as he gripped the arms of his command chair, eyes fixed on the view screen. "We need to break them now, or they'll regroup and overwhelm us." Lieutenant Kira's voice rang out from the tactical console. "Captain, they're adapting fast. We can't hold them for long with just our evasive maneuvers." Ren's mind raced. The Krillians had no shortage of resources, and they would soon learn how to compensate for the loss of communication. He had been counting on that, on the fact that the Krillians, with their focus on sheer force, might underestimate the human capacity for speed, ingenuity, and unpredictability. But as their enemies regained their composure, the clock was ticking. "Increase our speed," Ren ordered. "Give me a direct course to their flagship." The Resolute surged forward, weaving through the frenzied lines of the Krillian warships, the crew's efforts turning every instinct into calculated precision. Ren knew the best defense now was to stay one step ahead, to push forward and not allow the Krillians a chance to reorganize. On the bridge, the crew was focused, sweat glistening on their brows, every hand moving in synchronized coordination. The ship's engines hummed louder, its hull vibrating with the strain as it weaved through incoming fire. The Krillians were adjusting. Their weapons now homed in on the Resolute more effectively, and their elite warships had closed in around the human ship, making it harder to maneuver. "We're getting boxed in, Captain," Kira warned, watching as the massive ships formed a tightening circle around the Resolute. Ren's gaze remained fixed on the main display. There was one option left, one risky, desperate move. It was the kind of maneuver that would require absolute precision, but if successful, it could disrupt the entire battle. "Prepare to initiate the Inferno Protocol," he said quietly. The Inferno Protocol was a last-ditch tactic, a system designed to deploy all available energy into a single devastating burst. It was risky, untested in real combat, but Ren knew the Resolute's core could handle it. The entire ship was designed to absorb and redistribute power at an extreme level, but only for a brief period. It was a gamble. If they failed, they would be obliterated by the incoming fire. But if they succeeded, protocol initiated, Kira said with a hint of disbelief, as the crew worked to align the ship's systems. Energy surge at 85%. Ren could feel the tension on the bridge, the collective awareness that they were teetering on the brink of something monumental. He looked over at Kira, his eyes narrowing with resolve. "We're not going down without a fight," he muttered. The Resolute's engines screamed as the power surged through the ship. Every system, every weapon, every shield was now feeding into one concentrated strike. The Inferno Protocol was designed for one purpose: to break through the toughest of defenses, to pierce the heart of an enemy fleet. Ren slammed his fist down on the command panel. Fire. The ship's entire core flared with a blinding light, releasing an enormous burst of concentrated energy straight into the heart of the Krillian fleet. The shockwave rippled through the void, shaking the very fabric of space. In an instant, the concentrated blast hit its target. The lead Krillian flagship. The impact was catastrophic. The flagship's shields, unable to withstand the concentrated power of the Inferno Protocol, collapsed in an instant, and the ship was torn apart in a flash of brilliant energy. A chain reaction spread throughout the Krillian fleet. Without the leadership and cohesion of their flagship, the remaining warships faltered. Panic spread like wildfire, and the Krillians, usually so composed in battle, were now disoriented. Ships began to collide, their firepower turned inward as their once perfect strategy shattered. The Resolute rocked violently from the force of the blast, and alarms blared across the bridge. Kira's voice rang out through the chaos. "Shields are failing, Captain. We're at 30%. Ren gritted his teeth but didn't flinch. The gamble had paid off. They had broken the Krillian fleet wide open, and now the humans were in control, at least for the moment. "Hold steady," Ren ordered, his voice unwavering. "We finish this now. All hands, prepare for the final strike." The galaxy held its breath as the last phase of the battle began. Humanity had taken the first decisive step toward victory. The Resolute was a battered, smoking shell of its former self, but it was still alive. The ship groaned under the strain of the Inferno Protocol's energy discharge, its hull pockmarked with scorch marks from the blast's aftermath. The Krillian flagship had been obliterated, and a good portion of their fleet was now in disarray. But the battle was far from over. The Krillians were fierce, relentless, and not about to give up their conquest so easily. On the bridge, Captain Elias Ren stood tall, his expression grim but determined. The Resolute had struck a devastating blow, but he knew that if the human ship didn't press its advantage now, the Krillians would recover and come at them with even more ferocity. "Status report," Ren barked, his voice steady despite the tension coursing through him. Lieutenant Kira's fingers danced over her console, her brow furrowed. "Shields are at 25% and dropping. Power is fluctuating, but we've got enough to keep going for now. Engines are stable, but we won't be able to outrun them much longer if we don't neutralize the remaining ships." Ren's eyes flicked to the display. The remaining Krillian warships were regrouping, circling their flagship's wreckage like vultures. They weren't retreating, not yet. They were rearming, recalibrating and ready to continue the fight. "They're closing in," Kira added, urgency creeping into her voice. "They're not going to give us a moment to breathe." Ren could feel the sweat trickling down his neck, his mind racing as he analyzed their options. The Resolute was small, but agile, and the Krillians were heavily reliant on their massive warships. Even if the Resolute could take out another handful of ships, the sheer weight of the Krillian firepower would eventually wear them down. But there was something Ren had learned over the years. A single, well-timed move could turn the tide of any battle. "Get me a targeting lock on their remaining capital ship," Ren ordered. "We're going to strike at the heart of the fleet." Kira's hands flew over the controls, and a few tense seconds later, she called out, "Target locked, Captain." "It's their last remaining capital ship. Direct hit could take out half their fleet." Ren nodded, his resolve hardening. "We don't have the luxury of half. Give me a clean hit." He turned to the rest of the bridge crew. "This is it. We hit them hard, and we hit them fast. I don't care what's left in the tanks. Make it happen." The crew responded without hesitation, their focus razor-sharp. Ren's pulse quickened as the Resolute angled toward the remaining Krillian capital ship, the last bastion of their offensive. The ship's sensors blared warnings, but the captain ignored them. Time was running out. "Prepare all forward-facing weapons," Kira ordered, her voice tight with concentration. The human ship had been running low on ammo for the past few minutes, but it still had just enough to make a difference. The Resolute's forward plasma cannons hummed to life, the energy coursing through the ship's systems. "Now, Captain," Kira asked, her finger hovering over the fire button. Ren took a deep breath. "Now." The Resolute's weapon systems discharged in a single burst of concentrated plasma, the energy streaking through the void toward the Krillian capital ship. The impact was immediate and brutal. The capital ship's shields flared, straining against the blast, but they were no match for the raw power of the Resolute's concentrated fire. The ship's energy shields collapsed, and the plasma cannon struck its vulnerable core, tearing into the vessel with deadly precision. The explosion was immense, a bright flash that illuminated the darkness of space for miles. The Krillian capital ship was gone in an instant, consumed by the overwhelming force of the Resolute's attack. The remaining Krillian ships recoiled, their formations breaking apart as the shockwaves rippled through their ranks. "Direct hit, Captain," Kira said, her voice filled with awe. "We've crippled their command structure. The rest of their ships are in complete disarray." Ren allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction, but only a fleeting one. The battle was far from over. The remaining Krillian ships were now in chaos, but they were not defeated. "Not yet. They'll regroup," Ren said quietly. "Prepare for another wave." Despite the chaos, the Krillians were relentless. A few ships broke off from the main fleet, racing toward the Resolute with renewed purpose, their weapons charging. It was a last-ditch effort to finish the humans off, but the odds were stacked against them. Ren's crew, battle-hardened after days of combat, were more than ready. "Brace for impact," Ren ordered. The next few moments were a blur. The Resolute weaved in and out of incoming fire, each evasive maneuver pushing the ship to its limits. Plasma blasts exploded in the distance as the human ship danced through the Krillian lines, using their disarray against them. The remaining ships were no longer coordinated, no longer united under the command of a single flagship. They were scrambling, fighting for survival. "Captain," Kira called out, her voice suddenly tinged with surprise. "They're retreating. The remaining Krillian ships are breaking off." Ren's eyes widened as the realization hit. The Krillians were retreating. "They're not done yet," he said firmly. "But we've won this round." The battle was over. For now, the Resolute had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The silence that followed the battle was deafening. The Resolute hung motionless in the void, its once pristine hull now a battered, scared testament to the ferocity of the fight. Around them, the remnants of the Krillian fleet were scattered, some crippled, some burning, and some retreating into the vast expanse of space. The humans had struck a decisive blow, but the cost had been high. The crew of the Resolute had proven their worth, but the scars of the battle were evident across the ship, both in its broken systems and in the weary faces of the crew members who had endured it all. Captain Elias Wren stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the fading remnants of the Krillian fleet. His chest rose and fell with each steady breath, his face an unreadable mask. Victory, yes, but at what cost? He had seen the brutal toll the fight had taken, and the aftermath felt strangely hollow. They had won, but they were not unscathed. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission." Kira's voice broke through the stillness, her tone tight. "It's from the United Earth Command." Wren looked up from the view screen, finally breaking his trance. "Put it through," he said quietly. The image on the screen flickered for a moment before stabilizing, revealing an elderly officer in a crisp uniform, his expression somber. "Captain Wren," the officer said, his voice low and heavy. "We've been monitoring your progress, and we have to commend you for your remarkable success. The world is watching, and humanity owes you and your crew more than words can express." Wren nodded, his mind still reeling from the chaos. "Thank you, sir, but it's not over yet. The Krillians will regroup, and they'll be back." This was just the first wave. The officer's face tightened with understanding. "We're aware, but what you've done here has given humanity a fighting chance. It's bought us time to prepare. We'll be rallying our forces, but we need you to hold the line. This victory means more than just one battle. It's a statement, a message to the galaxy that humanity is not to be underestimated." Wren didn't respond immediately. He knew the importance of their victory, but it didn't feel like triumph. It felt like a moment of fleeting relief, a brief respite before the next storm. "I'll do what I can, sir," Wren replied finally. "But we need reinforcements. The Resolute is barely holding together, and we're running on fumes." The officer nodded, his expression serious. "Reinforcements are on the way, Captain. You'll get the support you need. But for now, take the time you have to recover. You've earned it." Wren glanced over at Kira, who had returned to her station, her fingers tapping furiously on the console. There was no time to rest. Not yet. The Krillians might be retreating now, but Wren knew that they would return stronger, more prepared. The next battle could be even worse. "We'll need to repair the ship," Wren said, his voice firm. "And we need a strategy. The Krillians won't sit back for long." Kira looked up at him, her face a mixture of exhaustion and resolve. "Agreed, Captain. I'm already running diagnostics on all systems. We'll be ready." Wren turned his attention back to the view screen. The vast expanse of space stretched out before them, the stars glimmering faintly in the distance. It was a beautiful sight, and yet it carried an undeniable weight. The Resolute had faced the might of the Krillian fleet and emerged battered but standing. But there was no time to savor the victory. The enemy would not rest, and neither could they. "Set course for the nearest repair station," Wren ordered. "We need to get our systems back online as quickly as possible. And Kira, I want a full report on the condition of our weapons. We'll need them fully operational for whatever comes next." Kira's voice was steady. "Understood, Captain. I'll get to work on it right away." Wren's hand hovered over the console for a moment longer. He knew they had won the battle, but the war was far from over. Humanity had sent a single ship into the heart of the Krillian invasion, and it had been enough to make a statement. But now they needed to rally, to rebuild, and to prepare for the storm that was coming. He took one final look at the wreckage of the Krillian fleet before turning to face his crew. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. They had proven that humanity could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest powers in the galaxy. But the real test was still ahead. The Resolute had won the battle, but the war had only just begun. "Let's get to work," he said, his voice low and resolute. "We've earned our rest. but the fight is far from over." The crew nodded in unison, knowing full well the weight of the road ahead. The galaxy had just learned that humanity was a force to be reckoned with, and now it was time to prove it. The Resolute drifted quietly toward the repair station, its systems sputtering and flickering in the aftermath of the battle. The crew had earned their moment of rest, but Ren knew that the brief respite wouldn't last long. They were deep in enemy territory now, and the Krillians were relentless. Even with the victory behind them, the war was far from over. "Repairs are progressing," Kira reported from her console, "but we're still in no shape to face another battle. The ship's engines are holding, but we've only got a few hours of power left before we need to refuel." Ren nodded, his expression grim. "I know. We're going to need more than just repairs if we want to survive the next wave. We've bought ourselves some time, but not much." The crew was exhausted, but the sense of urgency never left the bridge. They were facing a battle not just for survival, but for their place in the galaxy. Humanity had shown the Krillians what they were capable of, but that was just the beginning. The true test lay in how they would respond in the coming days. Ren stood up, his boots clicking against the floor of the bridge as he moved toward the observation window. The distant stars were a reminder of how vast the universe truly was. But now, humanity was no longer an unnoticed speck in the void. They had made their mark. The Resolute had shown the galaxy that humans weren't just a weak race to be wiped out. They were fighters. "We need a plan," Ren muttered to himself. "We can't afford to just wait for them to regroup. If the Krillians come back in full force, we're finished." Kira looked up from her console, her brow furrowing. "You're thinking of something risky, aren't you?" Ren turned, meeting her gaze. "Risky is the only option we've got. The Resolute can't fight a full-scale invasion alone. We need to take the fight to them, hit them where it hurts before they can rebuild." Kira blinked in surprise, her mind racing. "You mean, we go to their homeworld?" Ren's gaze hardened. "Yes. The Krillians are like any other empire. Their power comes from their center. If we strike at their homeworld, we can cripple their ability to wage war. We'll take their leadership, their resources, their very will to fight." The bridge fell silent as the crew processed Ren's words. The idea of taking the Resolute into the heart of Krillian space was audacious, reckless even. But Ren had always known that sometimes, to win a war, you had to take risks that no one else would dare. "You're proposing a one-way mission," Kira said quietly, her voice betraying a sense of disbelief. Ren's eyes never wavered. "Yes, we're not coming back unless we win." The crew exchanged uncertain glances, but Ren knew he had to make them believe. This wasn't just a battle. It was a turning point. Humanity's future depended on it. "We've proven that the Krillians can be beaten. They're not invincible. We just have to strike first, and hit harder than they ever expected." Lieutenant Jax, the ship's communications officer, spoke up from his station. "Captain, I've just received a transmission from Earth Command. They're sending reinforcements, but they're months away from being anywhere near our position. We'll be alone for a long time. If we do this, we can't afford to fail." Ren nodded, the weight of the decision settling heavily on his shoulders. "I know, but this is the best chance we'll ever have. We've already shown them what we can do. And if we take the fight to their homeworld, we can break their will to fight." Kira, usually the pragmatic one, was quiet for a moment before speaking. "If we do this, it's going to be the most dangerous mission anyone's ever undertaken. But we can't let fear stop us. If we succeed, we can end this war." The crew stood as one, their faces a mix of exhaustion, fear, and determination. They knew what this mission meant. It was a gamble, the final gamble in a war that had already claimed so much. But they also knew there was no other option. "We're with you, Captain," Kira said firmly. Ren took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. "Then it's settled. We'll make for Krillian Prime. We strike fast, hit hard, and leave before they can mount a counterattack. Let's show them that humanity doesn't back down. The crew moved with a renewed sense of purpose as Ren gave the order. The Resolute was not just a ship now. It was the symbol of humanity's defiance, a testament to their strength, their resilience, and their unwavering will to survive. As the ship's engines roared to life once again, the crew of the Resolute knew they were heading into the unknown. The odds were against them, but they would fight with everything they had. The future of humanity depended on it. And as the Resolute set course for the heart of Krillian space, one thing was certain. This war would be decided by the courage of a single ship and the indomitable spirit of the human race.